Hey, what's cooking, people? We talk about indie companies all the time today as if they are something new. But I always argue that we just got lost in the sometimes overhyped marketing of AAA companies and forget that most of the best gaming companies we love started off as indie studios, and many of those once smaller studios simply remained small, as in the number of staff, but still managed to create some of the best games ever made, and in their given genres. Treasure was exactly one of those studios, and still to this day is, in my opinion. They remain unmatched in the shoot 'em up genre. I was and still am a big Treasure fan. The first game I ever played by them was Gunstar Heroes on the Sega Mega Drive, which was actually their first game they ever made, I believe. Gunstar Heroes was an awesome side-scrolling shooter, and I always remember looking at the cover and thinking that the soldier guy on the plane looked like the military guy in the film Akira. But then I didn't take note of Treasure as a company name, and they only really came back on the scene for me when they made Guardian Heroes on the Sega Saturn. A game which still to this day is one of the best 2D side-scrolling beat-em-ups ever made. The amount of pixels in this game pushed the Saturn to the max, and the amount of slowdown in the game when the skeletal warrior goes flip mode was immense, but it never ever bothered me. In fact, I love that type of slowdown, as it made the game feel like it was going in slow motion at the most epic of moments, so you could appreciate the chaos just a bit longer. From that point on, Treasure were on my radar, and I pretty much soaked up all of their major releases, starting straight away with Mischief Makers on the Nintendo 64. A rare and unique 2D platformer on the N64 that starred a character called Marina, a robot maid who is out to rescue her creator from the evil Clancer Empire. It was a very unusual game, but I also absolutely loved it. Their next game that I played was Silhouette Mirage on the Sega Saturn, a game that only came out in Japan for the Sega Saturn. I believe it came on the PlayStation as well later on. I can't remember if it came to PAL territory or not though. I bought it around the same time that I bought my absolutely sexual Japanese Sega Saturn, but unfortunately, because the game was in Japanese, I just couldn't work it out how to play it, so I never really experienced what the game had to offer. But there was another game that I bought from my Japanese Sega Saturn that didn't need the understanding of Japanese language, and is still to this day one of, if not arguably, the best shoot-em-ups ever made, and that is Radiant Silvergun. There are moments in this game where you look at what the Sega Saturn was producing and can't help but be blown away. Radiant Silvergun is god tier and simply needs to be played for anyone who loves shoot 'em ups. Then you had Bangai-O, another strangely original shoot 'em up from Treasure. I own the Sega Dreamcast version, but the most sought after version is the Nintendo 64 one, most likely due to it being more rare than anything else. After this, my next game was Ikaruga. I own both the Sega Dreamcast and GameCube versions. I had the Dreamcast version first. That was the first game I played, and can proudly say that I completed this beast of a shoot 'em up, which once again is god tier, and Ikaruga is not an easy shoot 'em up, but I absolutely loved it. Got an incredible soundtrack as well, which you can hear in the background of this video. Other Treasure games I owned after that were Wario World on the GameCube. Great to see Treasure working with Nintendo on one of their main characters. I also bought Gradius 5, or Gradius, however you want to pronounce it, which people by Crom, what another stunning shooter. Best in the series, if you ask me. And finally, The last Treasure developed game I bought was Sin and Punishment Star Successor on the Wii. When the original Sin and Punishment was released on the Nintendo 64 back in the day, I was always jealous that it never left Japan, as the game looked absolutely stunning back then. Luckily, the game came to the Nintendo Wii U on the Virtual Console as a download, and I got to go back and play that game and put my mind into N64 mode, something I can quite easily do with any retro consoles, and I absolutely loved Sin and Punishment on the Nintendo 64, although I played on a Virtual Console like I said. But it was here that Treasure pretty much disappeared, in some respects. We had HD ports of Radiant Silvergun and Guardian Heroes on the Xbox 360, both games I naturally bought again, but literally there was nothing else after that, as far as I can remember. So what has happened to Treasure? A small studio of ex-Konami developers who created some truly sensational games. A quick search around the net doesn't reveal much, apart from a old rumor via NeoGAF back in like 2016, saying that Treasure have closed up shop, but there has never been any official press release as far as I'm aware of. I personally hope that they are not done for. I'd very, very much like them to work with Nintendo again and bring a Sin and Punishment 3 to the Nintendo Switch, seeing as Nintendo has published that entire series. Ikaruga had HD ports to previous generation consoles as well as the PC. I'd love to have a port of Ikaruga on the Nintendo Switch, which if you placed the Switch in portrait tabletop mode, it would be perfect for Ikaruga, which actually plays in portrait mode itself. Hell, let Treasure work on the next Star Fox. I think they could make a phenomenal 3D space opera out of that series, more so than anyone else, I feel. Maybe even more so than Nintendo themselves, who arguably, have lost their way with Star Fox since Star Fox 64. Although I personally enjoy Star Fox Zero, I can understand the complaints, but I'd like to talk about Star Fox in the series in another video actually, so I won't ramble on about that. Treasure to me are a talented studio that has industry recognition, but unfortunately not much recognition by the wider gaming market. If anyone has any further insights into Treasure's current position, please let me know in the comment section below. Or if you're a Treasure fan like me, let me know your favorite Treasure games, what consoles they were on, and let's have a little discussion about this awesome studio who has gone horribly quiet, and I would love to see come back, especially on the Nintendo Switch. As for shoot 'em ups, I feel that platform is absolutely ideal. So as always, thanks for listening, people, and I look forward to your comments below. Peace. Treasure, where are you? Come back to me.